Welcome to our first debate in a series of debates on the upcoming 5 Anchorage Assembly races. We're joined here by incumbent John Weddleton and challenger Randy Sulte for the South Anchorage Assembly race. Ballots go in the mail on March 15th in a couple days, and the election concludes on April 5th. First, I want to thank our sponsors, the IBW 1547, training and representing electrical and communications workers all over Alaska. Alaskans for Better Elections, working to inform people about Alaska's new voting system. And GCI, providing internet, telecom, and wireless services all throughout Alaska. We're going to begin with an opening statement from each candidate, approximately 2 minutes. We're going to go into discuss and debate some of the issues facing the city. We're going to allow the candidates a couple of questions to each other, and then we're going to conclude with closing statements. So we drew at random, and we're going to start with you, John Weddleton, the incumbent. Go ahead.
Hi, so I'm John Weddleton, and 6 years ago I brought to the Assembly 30 years as a business owner, 20 years of very active involvement with local community government. And I promised to focus on the issues and not the politics, and I did that. And I work well with all the Assembly members. I work well with the mayor and his staff, and I work great with the community as well. And we've done a lot. We've kind of set the stage for more great progress in Anchorage. We rebuilt the police force from 300 to 425. We sold MLMP, which spins off tax relief year after year with money in the trust fund. We were successful in 7 years of litigation on the port, so we have money to go towards that. And we also have a direction on the port, which wasn't easy. The users had to come together and decide what do they want. So we have that. So now we're really poised for building on that. And we have, the path forward with homelessness, working with the mayor, and that's going to be huge for Anchorage. Rebuilding the port, we know which way to go. We've got, I am determined to make building houses more profitable so we get more houses. So it's a whole list of things we do. We're ready to do more. And I've learned over the years that, how do you get things done? And it is listening generously, being creative, playing well with others, and focusing on the work and not the politics. And I've done that for 6 years, and I look forward to continuing that.
Thank you. We're going to go to Randy Sulte. And I want to say we invited Darren Colbury, and he said he was going to be here and didn't show up. So it's just you two. So go ahead, Randy.
Jeff, thanks for having me on. So I'm Randy Sulte. I'm a regular citizen, like a lot of your listeners. A lot of my experience has been in the oil and gas industry. So I came up here in 2004, went to School of Mines, met my wife there in 1990, been coming up here since. She's a Service High graduate. We moved back here with our 3 children, had our 4th while in Anchorage. I worked for Nalco Chemical Company, worked for BP for about 10 years, and now I'm over at CCI and Kikivik Asset Management. Community-wise, a lot of what I've done has been tied to my kids. So the kids are center of my universe, and that's kind of my goal in life, is to make sure they're okay. So I've coached teams, I've worked at the schools, board-wise, I guess I got on Hilltop's board. I've been there since 2006. I was president of Rocashille Incorporated, where we moved them from International to Century Drive, and then built them a new home over off Dowling for about $12 million, and it's housed over 500 kids at one time. So really proud of that fact. So why did I throw my name in the race, and why am I running against John? Well, the easy part is I'm running against John because I live in District 6. John's the guy I have to go with. I was probably paying attention to national races and local races, figuring out the day of, heading in. If I didn't have enough information, I just didn't vote for that line item. But I wasn't happy with what I've seen, the direction of Anchorage since we've moved here. I'm not happy with what I've seen, the changes in downtown. I'm not happy with how our small businesses have been affected, especially lately. And like I normally do, I jump in with both feet, lead by example, and really want to get in, spend a term, do what I can to make a difference, and then, like a constitutionalist, get back to my work.
I appreciate you guys both being here, and we're going to get right into it. First topic I want to discuss is homelessness. We've seen the Sullivan Arena operating for almost 2 years. I think most people would say that's not the long-term solution. I want to start with you, John. You've been on the Assembly for 2 terms. You're going for your 3rd term. What is the solution, and why haven't we been able to really solve this problem that's plagued us for decades?
There is no solution to homelessness. We will always have it. And there's certainly, Anchorage alone can't solve it. The long-term issue is complete neglect of our mental health system and our drug and alcohol recovery system at the state level. And that all dumps on Anchorage. But we can make it better. And, for most of the history of Anchorage until a couple of years ago, The city government did not have involvement with homelessness. We left it to faith-based groups, nonprofits, and it clearly wasn't working. And we put in 3 years ago about $400,000 just to shore something up when the state was pulling their funding. We did a $1.8 million program that spread out over 3 years to get people who could use it into housing to pick them up and get them going. But now Mayor Bronson came in, all in, and he says, it's not working. We need to put municipal money towards it. And I totally support that. What was working, what we did before wasn't working. So I'm on the group that's coordinating with the mayor. We have a path forward that was unanimous on the assembly with the mayor. We're putting money towards it. And I am extremely excited to be part of that because it will transform the issue here in Anchorage. We will be in a much better spot.
Randy, I want to get your ideas on the homelessness issue, and I want to say you're the conservative candidate in the race, and Mayor Bronson, this was one of his issues, and he won, and he's the mayor, and it's still basically not. There's been very little progress on this. If you're successful on the assembly, being a progressive assembly, even if you were to win, how do you see this challenge being solved when even the mayor's having trouble with it?
Yeah, so homelessness is a difficult problem, and the answer I say is yes. It's everything. It's multifaceted. So when someone says, hey, housing first doesn't work, no, that does work. It does work for a percentage of the population that has good faculties and good decision-making capabilities and are maybe down on their luck. They had a job and the job was riffed. But what we've done in the past is we've thrown money at these problems without the counseling, without the care that's needed to get these people rehabilitated to where they can again make good decisions. Providing someone that's made poor decisions a house is not going to work. They're going to make a bad decision and end up back on the street. I also think there's a lot of compassion in Anchorage, and I'm compassionate. But we've got to stop panhandling. We've got to stop the illegal camping, because one thing that does, even though we mean well by it, it prevents the homeless from getting the resources that we put in place for them. So when you give someone $1 on the street, it might sustain them for that day, but then they avoid the shelters we put in place and the resources we put in place. And I think that's a critical aspect that we need to attack. I do like the mayor's current plan of a navigation center to, again, in process the homeless, find out what resources they need, and direct them to those resources.
I ask you both what you think about the Sullivan Arena solution or temporary solution that's been in place for almost 2 years. I'll start with you, John.
Well, I think it was incredible that, COVID happened and the traditional shelters cut their occupancy dramatically. We have hundreds of people ready to be dumped on the streets. Bad for them, bad for the city. And Beans Cafe and administration got them somewhere quick. And it was Sullivan, Ben Bokey. Not good long-term solutions, but incredible that they got it going literally in a week. But we got to get out. Long time had to get out. And one thing we said, we throw money at it. The city has not been throwing money at that at all. We've left it to others to do. So that wasn't happening. And in fact, this assembly
it's a reimbursement. We're trying to get reimbursed, I guess.
Yeah, I'm branching out. But this assembly has funded year-round abatement of camps, year-round, first time ever, to get them out of the camps because we have capacity, and we do at Sullivan now. But the plan with the mayor, it includes another low barrier shelter, which is important. We need that. We can't have Brother Francis grow beyond 125 or we had trouble. So we have another low barrier shelter, which is in the works. We should have an announcement pretty soon in the next week on where and when $1. Actually, Tuesday we'll have more funding towards it. But it's also a number of components. We have a workforce housing component. We are poised to buy with others. Less than half of the money, I think, is city money. Buying the sockeye in for people with high medical needs. Pull them. They got people getting cancer treatment in Sullivan Arena. Pull them out. Put them in there. Pull the 40 or so that are in Brother Francis. Put them in there. That opens up Brother Francis to 125. So you get more capacity. We have a drug and alcohol component. So the system we've worked out with the mayor isn't just one low barrier shelter. It's got those step up things as you move through. So it's a good plan, and we are funding it. These things are happening right now.
Randy, on the Sullivan Arena, and then going forward on.
Yeah, so the Sullivan Arena, again, they needed a shelter rather quickly, so that was the option that was chosen. For a long-term shelter, it's not designed for that. It's designed as an arena, as a hockey venue. We have a local hockey team that's currently, I'll say, homeless to go along with it, but they're looking to try to get back in there, and it's going to take some work to revitalize the Sullivan. There's urine in the concrete. other damage that's taken place. We'll have to renovate or get it back up to snuff. But the Sullivan, it's a lot of nooks and crannies, a lot of entrances and exits. There was a security guard there that would call me almost weekly and let me know what was going on. Violent offenders that they would kick out the night before and would be back in by 8 a.m. And I think that shelter just overwhelmed the resources they were trying. And we've got to always have an exit strategy. So you take a place like Beans, they do a great job of feeding people, but the goal really should be, how do we feed less as a community? So with the Sullivan, I do agree, we need to move, one, get the capacity back up in the other shelters. Two, move forward with the mass care shelter that Bronson's looking for. Because you're going to have people that we probably can't help right away, that are addicted to drugs, have mental health issues. And we have to have a place that's going to take them regardless of their condition when it's cold outside or when they need help. And we can't turn their backs on them. You've got places like the Downtown Hope Center that does a phenomenal job, but they're limited on what population they work with.
Okay, I want to jump into affordable housing, which is somewhat related to this issue. We see right now the average price of a home in Anchorage is over $400,000. It's not even the price in some cases; it's the availability. It's the number of houses on the market for sale, which is very small. I want to start with you, Randy. What can the city do, if anything? Is it a role of government to improve this? And for people who want to move here, young people, this is a major issue.
Absolutely. I have my daughter, we talked earlier, is in Air Force, and she's moving from Vandenberg back to Colorado Springs, and she is in this boat. She can't afford a house in Colorado Springs because they're growing so fast. And how do we do it? Well, roommates, you buy duplexes, fourplexes, and have renters that help pay for it. That's how a lot of people do it. Our first home was a double wide. That's where we started. We brought our first daughter home to that from the hospital. So yes, the city needs to get involved. We have the Heritage Land Bank and the Mental Health Trust that hold land. We have the base that holds land. We've got to access that land. I haven't been a proponent of the bridge across the Neck Arm till recently. I'm becoming more and more a proponent of that.
I was actually going to ask about that. So.
Yeah, and in all truthfulness, I just closed on property across the way that I'm working on for about 8 months for a cabin. But that land is great because that land, it's good land. It's not on the hillside. It doesn't have a view, so it's not going to be a $600 or higher $1,000 house. And when you look at it, it's affordable housing, but that means something different than low-income housing. And what we need is low-income housing. And we can come up with ideas. We can have swaths of land where you don't buy the land. Maybe you lease the land. Or maybe we put tiny homes on this plot of land where you own the home, but the land is still the city's, and reduce that barrier to entry.
John, same question on affordable housing. You've been on the assembly for 2 terms now, and I think this problem it's gotten worse since I've moved here, at least, than the price of housing. What's the role of the assembly in this and the government, and what can we do to get housing prices down or more availability?
One thing is you need more, and one, you got to make it profitable to build. And if you want more of something, make it profitable to get or to make, and then you get more. So we've been working on that. I came on with a lot of experience with our land use code, Title 21, a little bit with the building code. And I've been working all 6 years steadily with the home builders and just making changes in the code where it added cost but didn't bring any value, and just chipping away at the cost from that way. But there are also, we have no control over mental health trust. That's of course state, but HLB land is becoming available. We have something on the agenda Tuesday to make some Heritage Land Bank. Thank you. And real estate land, I should say more broadly, not necessarily Heritage Land Bank. Also in Eagle River, but it's a challenge too, because when you propose housing, people are like, well, wait a minute, I liked it the way it was. You got to get through the community on that. But is providing more land, and the thing that we've had is the size of houses have grown dramatically over the last 30, 40, 50 years. So they become more expensive because that's where the money is. So builders are building bigger houses because they make more money. We need to find some way to shift it where smaller houses are become an option. And we have an example. Seth Anderson built some on 10th and Cordova, where he got like 7 homes on a 10,000 square foot lot. And so he worked it hard, took him years, but now we have proof of concept.
So Randy touched on this. I want to ask you guys if it's not been in the news a lot, but for a long time, the Kinnick Arm Bridge was a means of not only just having more access out of Anchorage, but a huge amount of land and cutting down the commute over there by, over an hour. Do you support the bridge in some form? And is there a role of the city or the state to build that?
I don't, the state's got to build it. I don't, or federal funds, but there's no way we could afford it. I mean, this thing's over $1 billion. And the challenge with that, a couple. One is, what could that $1 billion go to besides that? And almost anything would be better. There's an opportunity cost. It's also be a challenge, if bridge is built and homes go over there for people who work here, we have the costs of those people landing on the city, but they're outside of Anchorage. So there's no income from that. And that would create a real burden on us. So you'd have this expensive bridge that, it was $1 billion for just 2 lanes.
We already have a lot of people commuting from the valley.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, and you would augment that with this. So we'd have access roads on this side. It's just, if you do the whole package, it's really expensive. And for what? And we have land, Powder Ridge, there. And we have a water utility worked out an agreement where we would bring infrastructure to Powder Ridge if they start developing more homes there. So there is land that can be developed, and we could start getting more homes.
Randy, on the Kinnickinnic Bridge, which you brought up, you stole my big question.
Yeah, so sorry about that. I'm absolutely a supporter of it. And here's a couple of reasons why. Yeah, I agree it's a different borough. And it could be stealing income and residences from us. They would still come in Anchorage and support our small businesses. But this is a long-term project, and it's a public works project. So kind of like what we saw during the Depression, Tennessee Valley Authority. Those public work projects have a tremendous impact on the community and can really raise all businesses. All boats rise on an incoming tide. But if we break ground in 10 years, we're lucky. If we have it done in 15, it's outstanding. So I look at it from a long-term point of view, that in 15 years, 20 years, we will need that bridge. And if we don't start now, we won't have it.
I want to go into downtown. Your guys' district is pretty far from downtown, but downtown has been, since I moved here in 2004, everybody seems to want to revitalize downtown. The 4th Avenue Theater is still there. You talk about housing and smaller housing for people that we could attract to move up here from now after COVID, these tech workers and remote workers. I want to start with you, Randy. What's your vision of downtown, and why do you think it really hasn't, for the most part, changed in many, many years?
Yeah, so my vision of downtown. So when Berkowitz came in, he had, I think it was the big wild life was his saying, and wanted everyone to dream big, but at least I didn't see much movement. So I look at long-term planning for downtown. I think we have a world-class asset downtown. We have Ship Creek that could really be revitalized as a focal point, a nice walkway, shops, and I use San Antonio as a model. People go to San Antonio for their downtown and the Alamo. So, to think big, dream big, we could absolutely take some streets and build a path, a circuit in downtown, dig down 4 feet, fill it with water. In the summer, you'd have boats. In the winter, you'd have ice skating. All the businesses along there could be restaurants and thriving, and it would be a tourist destination. People would come in. We would get conferences that want to come and use the Denina Center. People want to come here anyway because it's Alaska and it's a big, amazing place. But the challenge we face now is our downtown is not there. It has homeless. A lot of the businesses have gone under, and they come into Anchorage and they go out to the surrounding boroughs, and that's where they spend their money and their time.
On downtown.
It's very timely because we have an update to the downtown plan on our agenda on Tuesday. But
I saw that.
Yeah, and part of that, it is to make it a more pleasant place to be. And we've got an issue now is we essentially have a highway through it, which makes it challenging to make it the comfortable walking place we would go. And DOT controls those roads, so it limits what we can do. But there are, we're in a lull now as people quit working downtown. You say good use crowds out bad use. So without a lot of people there, you have kind of the homeless people are hanging out there, and that intimidates people. So it's hard to, we need to make that flip. And we will as more people start, working downtown again. I tell you, there's a lot going on there. In fact, the new development of the Key Bank building is going to be gorgeous, but the Peach Investments has a vision for that block that is just phenomenal. And they are people who do what they say they want to do. And, when they do that, it'll make a huge statement for downtown that this is a place to be. The 6th Avenue Hotel is another one. People are investing there. So we are seeing activity there. Debenham's building more housing down there. We have tax credits now for people who build housing. So we are starting to see progress on that. And we get more people down there, more lively, across the, not just work, but, after work. Amanda Moser's doing great things with Downtown Partnership with kind of constantly programming things going on. So we are seeing a lot of progress down there, and a lot of it's hidden because of COVID. People aren't working down there, they're not going down there. But as we move out of that, you will see the downtown continue to improve.
I want to ask about the Fourth Avenue Theater. It just in some ways has become a symbol of downtown. If anybody's lived here for any number of years, it's there. Nothing's happening. What's the solution there, Randy? Do you support an abatement? Should that be turned? There's been talk about turning it into housing or multi-use shops and business and housing. What's the answer to this Fourth Avenue Theater?
Well, I think you got to get with the owner and figure out why they're not developing or allowing others to develop it. But yeah, I don't want to tear it down. It's such a neat building with a neat interior. But you've seen other cities, and a lot of what my thing is we don't have to create the new ideas here. We just got to go steal them from other cities that have solved these problems or revitalized their downtowns. And you could take the Fourth Avenue Theater, keep the exterior, keep some of the fixtures of the interiors. When you walk through it, you can see what's going on. But, some places had real good luck with building kind of the indoor food courts. Portland had a great one before COVID, where you could go into a space like that and you'd have multiple vendors. They've put seats on the top of the building where you could grab your lunch and go sit in bleachers and look out over the city and watch the sunset. I mean, there's a lot of uses we could do. And we got a lot of creative businessmen and women in this town that just need to have access to that building and come forth with a good plan that we can support, and maybe some tax incentives to get them there. So,
yeah, John, you've been on the Assembly. They've dealt with this for a long time. Is there a role of government? What's the answer? How do we? Like I said, it's in some ways become a symbol of the lack of movement in downtown.
Well, that was the symbol I'm talking about that will change, because Peach Investments owns that, and their plan for that block is just phenomenal. It's considered a blighted block, so we do have a plan where you can get some tax abatement for a period of time, if you develop it. But their plan is to maintain for that whole block the basic, kind of the texture of it. What's there in the building and on the facade is just too damaged to really restore, but you can recreate it like it was, but in better form with kind of modern technology. So their vision for that block is to retain the feel if you're walking along it, but really maximize the whole area, going up several stories and so on. So it'll be incredible. And some of that stuff, like the stuff on the rooftops, you got Willowell doing that, 49th State, people are doing that. We do have amazing creative business people who've kind of seen the constraints of COVID and the change in shopping because of the pandemic. And those are speed bumps to them. They made it work, and it's just amazing.
I want to move on to the mayor and the Assembly relationship. I want to start with you, Randy. It's been, I'd say in one description, very troubled, even before the mayor of the Assembly and some of the antics and things we've seen. If you're successful, you're the conservative candidate in the race. Even if all the conservatives prevail, it's still going to be a progressive Assembly. If you're successful, what's your strategy to work with not just the mayor but the Assembly on in a very divided city?
Yeah, we have to heal, first of all, and if we get in there, hopefully it sends a message that the citizens are unhappy and they want to see things improve. They want to see adult conversations on the Assembly. So we absolutely have to, and how we come in is important, to let the incumbents know that we're here to work with them. I have no desire to see them be ousted as long as we work together. And when you have a problem in front of you, and this is one of my skill sets, I always get the difficult people to work with. And it's probably because of my demeanor and my focus on solving problems, my engineering background. But if you have a problem and you've got 5 solutions, I've got 5 solutions. Well, I can agree on 3 and you can agree on 3. So now we got 6 that we've worked. And I tell you what, I could take your number 7 if you could take my number 8. And now we've got 8. The other 2 we may never get to. Let's agree to disagree, but at least we've made progress on those 8. Because I can't believe that anyone sitting on the Assembly doesn't want to support small business, doesn't want to help homeless, doesn't have pride in Anchorage and wants to see it revitalized. And by focusing on those cores and maintaining respect and not throwing bricks and grenades, which we've seen from both sides. I was actually really proud of Bronson the other week, probably a month ago. Someone was kind of causing a disturbance at the podium, and they turned to the mayor and said, "What are you going to do about this?" And the person was getting thrown out. And the mayor said, "Absolutely nothing. You need to behave. You need to behave better and show respect," essentially what he said. And I think that was one of the supporters that he was saying that to. And, we've had issues with, or reported issues of Assembly members not being respectful. that's an individual problem with that person. But what would disappoint me the most is the other assembly members not holding that person accountable.
Yeah, John, same question. You've seen some of the shenanigans starting in 2020, I think, and then some of these weird protests, and then these mask mandate issue, which was pretty crazy. And the relationship between the assembly and the mayor is very, maybe it's better now, but it was very toxic. What if you're reelected, what's the strategy on more civility and actually discussing things in a meaningful way?
You know, things are changing. You know, we sit as equals on the assembly, and we do not have a routine or function to reprimand each other or censor each other. It is an individual thing. And I think when various assembly members do things that are create conflict where we don't need it, they do themselves more harm than I could ever do if I were to censor them. It's on them. So it's not for us to censor them. It's not what we do. But you know, it is, we work together on the big things really well. And I get frustrated. I have stayed out of that fray. I work with all the assembly members well, have for years, because I respect where they come from. They're put in there by voters. We're there to work together. And I work well with the mayor and his team. And you can see it with the homeless thing. You know, we're part of 3 assembly members, 3 people from the top of his administration, and we are problem solving. We're not at loggerheads doing some horrible negotiation. We all agree with this issue. We agree on the port. We're lined up with that. We agree on public safety. There's so many things we agree on. But you can see tension. But you know, when Ethan was in office, he told me, he says, John, how come the assembly's always fighting me? That seems pretty incredible. No mayor has ever had a more simpatico assembly than Mayor Berkowitz. But there's a tension in our system. You have a legislative branch, you have an executive branch, there's checks and balances. By its nature and intent, there is always going to be tension. And I think...
I would say, I've been here since 2004. I don't think we've ever seen it like this.
No, it is worse.
It's really bad.
But part of it, like the mayor didn't expect that. And he thinks he's mayor, he gets to do what he wants. And so no, we're kind of here doing our job too. But there are absolutely things. I mean, I get frustrated when assembly members put something in an ordinance that doesn't need to be there. It's just to ping the mayor. We don't need to do that. You know, he's new, he's getting his feet under him. It's hard to build an administration. And, you know, we've been doing it for years as a group, at least 5 years, and most of us 6. And we should be more supportive or patient than we often have been. But I gotta say, I've stayed out of that because, you know, my view is don't play games, we have a city to run.
We're going to move to candidate questions. So I'm going to allow each of you guys to ask 2 questions of one another. We'll start with Randy, and then John, you can have a response. And same thing with you. When John asks a question, you can respond. So we're going to get into the fun part.
Yeah. So we're John, we're deep into the election. Ballots come out on Tuesday. We see each other out door knocking. We start to see all these the palm cards and the mailers come out. So just want to ask you, at the end of the day, are you a cat person or are you a dog person?
No. And I'll tell you, years ago, 15 or more years ago, I saw an assembly member walk out on a vote. We have a duty to vote. The assembly member walked out, so we have to vote. And I thought, I would never do that. And I walked out on a vote a month ago because it was phrased like that. You make a motion, it's got to be a yes, no. Those are our 2 choices. It was not a yes, no question. I couldn't answer, and I tried. I said, we could phrase it differently and make it a yes, no question. No one would do that. And Crystal Kenny, Jamie and I were the same. So Jamie and I walked out because you couldn't, there's no way to do a yes, no vote. So that was not a yes, no question.
I tried to pin you down.
So.
Randy, what are you?
But I have 4 motorcycles.
Oh, I like that. Nice.
Cat or dog?
Oh, my God.
Some people bring dog treats when they go door to door.
Yeah, so okay, so cats. We got 4 cats. My kids each have 2 cats, and we've had up to 8 cats at our house one time.
Jeez.
We've been a dog person. I've been a dog person. My wife, our family dog, the dog, right, that the kids grew up with, recently passed away about 2 years ago. And I remember when my wife brought home this half lab, half golden puppy. And I was just like, oh. And she's like, what's wrong? I said, you got to say goodbye to him. That's my thing with dogs. Dogs are such loyal companions that I don't want another dog because I know at some point I'll have to say goodbye.
Of all the things I would have thought we would have talked about, having 8 cats wouldn't have been on my list. So we'll go to you, John, for the first question for Randy.
Well, yeah, and you know, so watching you. So we first, I think at your first assembly member meeting last July, and I saw you there. Mm-hmm. And for the listening audience, we've known each other. Our daughters went to O'Malley together. Our sons, I think, crossed over at Real Cochula. so we have a friendly relationship, So Randy there, I knew he was running. And I said, why are you running? And he said, well, I always wanted to be in politics. And pretty much out the gate, you had said you were there to be a vote for Bronson, and you called that balance, which is not what I think of as balance, but that was your thing. So now you're coming around, and I have to read something, if I can call it up. May I, sir?
Sure.
That is interesting, and sorry, technology, I should have printed something out. But it says, sounds like me. No more theatrics. I don't do the theater. I do the work. He said, we need leadership that listens to the citizens, works together to bring about real, meaningful progress. And I say, Randy, thank you. That's what I've been doing for 6 years on the Assembly and decades prior, is doing that, doing the work. So I appreciate that you're coming around, and I almost feel like this was an endorsement. Thank you.
Again, John's the guy I got to run against.
So what's the question here? Why he?
That wasn't really a question, but he could run with it.
Yeah, I just, John's the guy I got to run against. I'm a business person. I'm used to getting things done, and I want to get things done. I want to see this city progress. I am who I am, right? I'm a conservative. I'm a registered Republican. I'm a member of the NRA. I don't hide that. I stand for what I stand for. And as I say, you don't change your principles, but I can change my ideas. And when I say balance, it's diversity and inclusion. We don't want an assembly of Randys. That'd be a bad thing. We want people from all different walks of
Randy,
life.
like you're not randoms.
Right,
Randy.
right. Cookie cutter, right? Yeah. Too much power, one side or the other side is a bad thing. You need that healthy debate, that built-in strife, so we can represent the issues and represent our constituents well. But at the end of the day, we are there to get things done. And it goes back to, again, the incumbents. I don't want to see them ousted as long as we're getting things done. And at the end of my 3 years, I don't want to have a list behind me of things that I'm telling you that we did. I want you to become and say, you know what? I can see what you did around town.
Do you want to respond, John? You don't have to if you don't want to.
Well, no, it's fine. And I've always been nonpartisan. I have never been a Republican, not a Democrat, never sought to be. And I actually find that we have a bipolar system where solutions are either here or here, and it doesn't make sense. It doesn't work for us, particularly at city level. What is conservative or liberal about a fire truck? About the homelessness? All these really big issues about working downtown. We don't really deal with liberal conservative issues, and it really frustrates people and hurts the process when every issue in front of the Assembly becomes shoehorned into this right versus left, and is simply not the way to get good, sensible problem solving done. And my headset doesn't work there. I'm a small business owner. We don't solve problems like that. Like, which end is it? Is the problem the solutions are all about, and you've got to have an open mind and not be planted one end or the other to solve them. And that's my process.
Okay, Randy, I'll go to you for your second question to John.
So John, I'll ask you an answer before. Who'd you vote for in the last presidential election?
I don't know. And here's how I do. I've never voted for Republican or Democrat for president. We have one. I think it's a wasted vote, particularly in Alaska. But we have this bipolar system, and what we really need is at least one third party of note. I always vote for whoever I think is the strongest third party that's established, and usually that's the Libertarian Party. And it's just if they can get a certain percent, then they get on every ballot in the country on the next presidential election. And maybe someday, past my life, we will have at least one third party, and we can crack this bipolar system we have. So I didn't vote for Trump. I didn't vote for Biden.
Randy, you want to respond? You don't have to if you don't want to.
Yeah, sure.
You can respond.
I voted for Trump. The guy shouldn't be allowed.
Both times, or?
Both times, yeah. The guy shouldn't be allowed to have a phone, probably shouldn't be allowed to have a microphone, probably should be able to make public appearances, but I loved his policies. He made the U.S. energy independent. He started warp speed to get the vaccine out. I mean, he did a lot of good of cutting through red tape. I even heard, as far as environmental regulations, he cut through the red tape to make things easier, even for the government agencies. So I was trying to protect the environment. I think a lot of what he was doing made sense, quite frankly.
Okay, we'll go to our last question from John to Randy. Last question.
So you mentioned today, and you've mentioned before that you're a constitutionalist, which is important because when we get elected, we have to, swear to uphold the Constitution. Important. But you posted on your Facebook a little piece of someone recorded something from 4 or 5 years ago at a community council. We were talking about the library and the people were in there, and people saying, we should kick the homeless out. And someone saying only taxpayers should be allowed in the library. And I made the point that we have equal protections under the law, constitutional right to be in public spaces, whether you are rich or poor, housed or unhoused. But you morphed that into kind of a negative statement in your posting and somehow connected it to that I supported the recent stabbing at the library. So how can you justify being a constitutionalist but not protect both the poor and the rich equally? And as a bonus, maybe tell us how that relates to promoting a stabbing in a library.
So you must be held accountable for bad behavior. Okay, so our library is a resource. It's meant for education, for access to the internet, to better ourselves, to get books. It's not a place for people to come in and shoot up. It's not a place for people to take showers in the sink, set up camp in the bathroom, and not a place for someone who needs help to stab someone outside the library. Now, if you can't abide by the rules, no shoes, no shirt, no service, you should not be allowed entry. If you're going to go in, the assembly does the same thing. When people come in and can't abide by the rules, they create a disturbance and they are not asked to sit down, they're kicked out. So at the assembly we do it, but we won't do it at the library.
I'll let you respond.
I didn't hear an answer to the question. You have a constitutional right that they're rich or poor, and my sense from your posting is you denied that. Because we all agree illegal bad behavior
No, I don't deny
should be
it.
stopped.
Absolutely, they can come in. Absolutely.
And the implication that somehow I supported stabbing was quite a stretch. So, but I didn't ask a question on the first question, so I'll give you a pass.
Okay, thanks, John.
All right, well, we're going to move on now to some more topics, and we'll conclude after that. I want to talk about the police, specifically the body cams, which has been an issue lately, and there's been for many years discussion of body cams for the Anchorage police. We don't have them. Randy, I'll start with you. Do you support the body cams? And why do you think this hasn't happened yet? If you do support them, why hasn't it happened?
Yeah, I support them. I believe in open transparency, right? And my sister actually works in Atlanta, and she processes body cam footage to determine what's released, what's not released. So I believe in our police. I believe that they're upstanding individuals. And I would say anyone that didn't want a body cam probably has something to hide. I don't think they have anything to hide. I think it actually helped them tell their side of the story. I've done a ride along and just absolutely impressed with their training and their capability of dealing with the situations we dealt with that night were both ends of the spectrum. So yeah, I'm absolutely for it. And I don't know why it hasn't happened yet. It sounds like, it is COVID, manufacturing's down, so maybe it's supply chain issues. You place the order and you put them out there. It's not that hard to do. Things we spend a lot of time delaying things and working policies that are too detailed versus let's just get it going, let's fail forward and build it as we go.
John, on body cams for the Anchorage police officers.
Yeah, I support them as well. There are complications though, and the assembly doesn't do the policy on the cams. That would be up to the police, and they've been working on them, going back and forth. And I think the change in administration created another review of that, which delayed it somewhat. And at this point, I think they have them solidified, but now they have to go to the union because it changes work rules. So they'll have to go through what they said could be a 2 to 12 month process. Something could be potentially long on negotiating there. I'm a little frustrated with it. We'd like to get them. I support. We're heading that way. We need to get there. But when we first started doing, I'd read quite a lot about them over the years, and the real cost isn't buying the equipment, which I don't think we have trouble getting in a significant way. But it is doing what Randy's sister does, is storing the data, retrieving the data, sorting it, and so on. And the comments at the time were, "Oh no, we got that. Technology is great. It doesn't cost so much." Now we're going, it's really expensive. So I think now there's a realization that it is more money to manage that data than we actually have. And that's why Chief Curl is saying, well, we're just going to do a few at first, and it is to learn how to manage that data in a sensible way. So it's frustrating because we do want to get that out, but it's kind of an APD's lap now. We may have to look at more funding so that they can get the process for storing the data and managing it, out there better.
I want to do a follow-up here. Should it be up to APD? Should the police department choose if they do body cameras, or should it be a combination of the mayor and the assembly are elected officials? I'll start with you, Randy.
I'd like to see that dialogue, but at the end of the day, I would say no. I mean, APD is providing a service for the citizens of Anchorage, and the mayor and the executive branch is responsible for executing that wish. So again, it's just like me dealing with any contractor, and I'm a contractor. If the client says, this is what I want, this is what my vision is, and then there's the dialogue with the contractor who should be the expert and helps you get to that vision.
John, same question. Is it up to the APD, or should it be up to the mayor and the assembly, elected officials on the body cams?
We actually went to the greatest authority of all, and that was to the people. And the people voted and passed new funding, special funding to do the body
the
cams.
bond, right?
So it is, yeah. So it's not mayor assembly. The people said, and I voted for it, do it. So we need to do it, make it happen. Police need to be intricately involved with the policies because they're the ones dealing with it. If it doesn't work for them, you got to find some way where it works for them.
I want to talk about the election system. In 2018, the city of Anchorage moved to vote by mail, and there was a long process in setting that up. It wasn't willy-nilly. Like with COVID, we saw this in some places. It gets set up very quickly. Do you support the vote by mail, and do you trust our voting system here in Anchorage?
I do support vote by mail, and I trust our system. I was comfortable with the old system. The decision was made before, I think, maybe Pete might have been on the body when that decision was made. I think Amy was. But we have had, the election commission has brought to us every year since then, kind of recommendations in the form of an ordinance to improve it consistently. And we had one this year that we'd made a lot of steps to. So we have, more access with observers, better streamlined with observers, 24-hour video cameras, lots of improvements there. We are tightening up on the registration list so it doesn't go out to, we're stuck. We have to use the state's registration, which is a little frustrating. But we're working on improving how we handle that. So it's getting better all the time. I think it'd be hard to change because it's absolutely popular. People love it.
Randy, on the vote by mail and overall the election system in place here in Anchorage.
So I remember growing up when you'd actually find out who won Tuesday night, and I think those days are gone. My preference is vote in person. I think we did have a vote by mail through the absentee ballot process in the past where you could go request that ballot. Although I do admit vote in person can be difficult and probably should be expanded over a period of time to allow people to come in. As far as the integrity of the process, I know the election commissioners are doing everything they can. I worry about vote by mail when you don't drop it in a box or take it in person because you're spreading the number of hands that are touching that ballot. So you could absolutely affect the election in Anchorage. No doubt that South Anchorage is conservative, Eagle River is conservative. So if someone were to collect those ballots out of mailboxes and just throw them away, in a way they're throwing away a higher percentage of conservative votes. Okay. But I think if people that are worried about fraud, I think it's probably a pretty small percentage. I think what we really need to focus on is the voting rolls on the front end, which is a state issue. I've heard numerous stories, I'm sure you have as well, of apartment buildings getting multiple ballots for people that haven't lived there in years. People that move fairly often, they don't update their registration. People that live out of state. So I think that's probably where I would focus my efforts on, is cleaning up those rolls so it's one person, one vote.
Well, yeah, part of the issue with that is it's up to the individuals to update the registration. And some people, I've heard stories of, oh my God, somebody got in Colorado or in Tennessee got a ballot. Well, we have students, we have people working, we have military. So there is sometimes reasons for people to be getting ballots from out of state, but ultimately it's up to the state and the individual to update the registration. And that has been discussed, and that is a question that people have asked. So
can I embellish on that?
What's that?
Can I embellish on that?
Sure, yeah.
So there is a system, I think it's called ERIC, which most of the states are involved with it and will share information. At least we're connected with the state is that you can go look, and did someone recently register there? We take them off our rolls, but they won't let us use that. And I don't know why, but that's frustrating because that would go a long way towards solving that. So I actually had proposed, when we were going through the changes this year, that for people outside of the state, you get a postcard saying, hey, ballot's coming, let us know if you change your address, and just say, look, if you're outside of the state, unless you're military, because that's a sort of a special category. Student would be harder, but send them a thing and say, if you want a ballot, return this. Okay, so they have to request it, which is more like vote by mail. Right, yep. And I think that gets around our ability to use the state roll well. And that's just in a pass, but I think it's something we should continue to look at. It save money and be more secure.
Do you want to comment on that?
No, I'm good. I agree.
Okay, so last question, then we're going to go to closing statements. I just want to ask you guys each, what do you think the main three issues facing the Assembly, Anchorage, and specifically the Assembly are? And I'll start with you, Randy.
It's definitely homelessness is up there, and you can tie that to crime and drug and alcohol abuse. It's all one piece. Second is small business support. So our small businesses have been deeply impacted by COVID, and we've got to revitalize them, make their licensure easier. And then the third piece, I think, is something District 6 specific and Anchorage specific. It's around hillside plans, which John's had a lot to do with, Indian, Girdwood. They all have a lot of land issues as far as Title 21. And just trying to work through, I know AO just went through revitalizing Title 21, and that's a good beginning, but there's more to do. That's one of the biggest issues I hear from District 6.
John, the top three issues facing the city and the Assembly.
Top three, it changes daily as you make progress on things. But I'd say
I guess today. Yeah.
Okay, the port. We made a lot of progress on that, but if that falls down, we're all in trouble and everything else crumbles with it. Homelessness is huge, and we're making real progress on that. Assembly and the mayor working together. It's really tremendous. Dealing with South Anchorage, we've made a lot of progress on this, but what do we do when there's a wildfire? That will be devastating. I was in Paradise probably months after that fire, and it was an eye-opener. I mean, the damage that can happen so extreme, so fast. We can't allow that on the hillside, and there is a group there that is making progress. The state legislators are working with us. Good coordination on that. So we're making changes, evacuation routes, building new ones, identifying them, clearing getting people motivated again to clear dead trees out and doing defensible space. So that's another big one.
Okay, we're gonna finish the debate here. We're gonna conclude with closing statements. John, you did the first opening statement, so I'll start with you, Randy, for the closing statement.
All right, great, thanks. Again, thanks for having us on. Really appreciate it. So I'm Randy Sulte. I'm a conservative candidate running for District 6. A businessman, a family man, someone who's been in Anchorage since 2004, visiting since 1990. And at the end of the day, I think I have a lot of skills to bring that I've gained in the private sector to the Assembly and try to, again, show real progress. And at the end of the day, the reason I'm running is I don't think Anchorage is better off today than it was several years ago.
Thank you. Randy. John?
Well, thanks. As I said at the opening, I brought 30 years or plus, 35 or more as a self-employed business owner, decades of work, in the community. And that's taught me how to function well within this arena, the Assembly, and working well with the mayor, working well with the Assembly, and being very effective. And I would challenge the thought that the city is better now than it was 6 years ago in so many ways. I listed a bunch, the port, selling MLMP, progress recently on homelessness, building the police force. We're down to 300. We're 425 now. And that took cutting every single department for 4 years and moving that money towards the police. And crime is dropping. So we've done a huge amount over the years. We have challenges. COVID really heightened some new challenges, but we are moving beyond that. And we are poised in many ways to be so much better on the other side of that. And we are doing that. So we are better off now. And the list is long on the things that we've done. We have been tackling the problems despite the earthquake, despite COVID and many of the headwinds. Assembly is working with the mayor. I mean, you see fireworks, there's a lot of tinder there, but I don't fan the flames, and we are getting things done despite the noise that you see. So I look forward to, taking all that I've learned over the last 6 years and decades before and continuing the progress. It's an exciting time to be on the Assembly. We're doing big stuff.
Okay, well, I want to thank both of you, incumbent John Weddleton and challenger Randy Sulte. And I want to say again, we did invite Darren Colbury, another candidate in the race, and he didn't show up, so we extended that invite. I want to thank both of you for being here for our first debate. Yep.
Thanks.
Thank you. For our first debate in a series of 5 Assembly debates for the upcoming 5 Anchorage Assembly races, I want to again thank our sponsors, IBW 1547, Alaskans for Better Elections, and GCI. Stay tuned for more debates, and I want to thank Scott Jensen here for being such a great operator of the audio and video in our studio here in Anchorage, Alaska. So thanks again for watching, and stay tuned for more of our Assembly debates here on the Alaska Landline.